Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Prime. Oh, shoot, it's not even that show. It's actually Mind of Stein, episode
Minus
one.
Stein.
I don't even know the name of my new show. I'm such an amateur. I'm stuck on stupid sometimes. But no, I'm so excited to have our very first guest. The media right now is absolutely going nuts. And people are saying that there's some sort of kind of furry agenda where now furries are being violent and they have the evidence when it comes to Tyler Robinson, obviously the alleged assassin that shot Charlie Kirk, as well as Thomas Crooks allegedly was also in furry Discord. So we want to dive deep into that, and we brought on an expert. This guy, I don't even want to say guy because he's not just a guy. He's also a MAGA furry, and that's accepted
Yes.
here on the Mind of Stein because we want you to expand your mind and expand your horizon. So, Razmo, with no more further introduction, I don't think that introduction was that great, but I really don't even know how to describe you. But you are a conservative furry. Does that make you? Are you ostracized at the furry conventions when you go?
I would say it's more online. I haven't really had anyone come up to me conventions, even though there was kind of a flare up where there was a bit of a cancel wave that happened. Especially when I made my views more known about being supportive of Trump and the conservative movement in general and the MAGA movement back in 2020. Because at that time I was in some of the social circles with some of the bigger creators in the fandom, like on the YouTube side. And as soon as I made those opinions known, I had people going, "Hey, this creator, this influencer, they all follow this guy. Go cancel them." Like, because they can't associate with anyone who thinks anything remotely moderate or conservative. So I had about an enraged 2,000 like plus people trying to cancel me, put me on block lists and stuff like that for a couple months. But there was no accusations tied to it, so it was pretty much well, what did I do wrong? And the answer was you thought wrong things, you had wrong think. So but it was all online. A lot of people don't like to say what they want to say outside the anonymity of the internet. So when I went back to the conventions, no one really said anything. Just maybe a couple people I knew gave me some shundais, no longer talked to me, but I treat people with respect and kindness, so that carried on outside that wave, and still treated good at the convention so far. But who knows after this? Because
Is this Razmo? I know you're toast. Now that you're on my show, you're done. Is this the heart though? This is peace and love. This is the heart, right?
Yes, the heart.
And how much does the furry community overlap with like the rave community? Because that was where I was first. That's where I first saw a furry. Was like at a rave, and I saw like the crazy costumes, and I thought it was just like maybe people were like on ecstasy or something. It's like just like a party thing. I didn't realize there was a huge subculture. So I guess, how did you get into it? What was the first time you kind of discovered a furry in real life?
I would say my first, like, when I learned what like a furry was when I was like probably in like middle school or like early high school. And I had the same reaction as most people were like, "Oh, that's that's pretty cringe. That's pretty weird." If there's anyone that's going to get bullied, it's going to be those people. But what kind of led me to kind of engage with it later on is I actually kind of entered the fandom around 2017 when I was in my first year in college. But what brought me into it was because growing up from, I would say, like the fourth grade to high school, I was like severely bullied. Nothing for anything I did in particular, but just like I was the kid that people picked on. And growing up, I had a lot of like social anxiety in terms of the sense of I was always worried what people thought of me, because I was like, okay, are they going to make fun of me for making this kind of joke or doing this kind of thing? If I go out on the dance floor at like, a school dance, are they just going to like laugh at me? Like, what is the next thing they're going to make, fun of me for?
Well, real quick, I have to make this about me. I have to always make this about me.
Yeah.
If I remember high school right, it was cool to get on the dance floor. I mean, I do a lot of cringe stuff still, and I'm, I'm in my late 30s. So, you know what I mean? Like, I guess it was probably not just you dancing. I mean, I feel like bullying people, some people say it's good, but it can't be good, right? I mean, like, obviously there's some, negativity around bullying. Like maybe some light hazing can kind of be good. So you feel like maybe, part of the team. And I'm not even saying serious hazing, because serious hazing is ridiculous. But like, a little prank. I think they call it in wrestling ribbing. where you kind of play jokes on people, where it's not really meant to be malicious. It's more just to kind of like, take the piss, as Ricky
Like
Gervais would say.
my friends and I roast each other all the time. Like my roommates in college, they were best friends of mine throughout all of high school and through all of college, and they made fun of me for being a furry the whole time. But it was like hazing. It wasn't like ill intent or whatever. They're not like oh you suck because of this. They're just like oh you probably like that one piece of content because you're just a furry. That's what furries do or whatever. And you brush it off. The strongest friendships are ones that you can actually crack jokes and roast each other over. Those are like the real ones. If you're someone who's offended over the smallest things, good luck to you because the world's a tough place.
No, it is a tough place, and I don't even think I went hit live on Twitter. Hold on, I'm such an idiot. Gosh almighty. I'm so dumb. Update titles. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. This is why I do need a producer. Okay, hold on. Let's go at Twitter. Let's go Twitch. We'll go Facebook, and yeah, I guess that's everything. Okay, real quick. So that was a really emotional story talking about your friends and everything. And let's see, are we live on? I didn't even check. Are we even live on YouTube? Let's see.
Yeah,
If
we've
we
been live
are.
on YouTube, but chat's saying that we're like stuck in a mobile version on YouTube.
No. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Well, the mobile version still works. It's dual doing it. I think there's another version. I think there's two versions. Whatever. Let's just keep it
Okay.
like this because I
Yeah.
don't want to make the stream. We're still gonna get clips. That's all that matters. That's why we're gonna sit here and talk for an hour so we can get some damn clips. Let's not joke. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like the stream's working. So we are talking about this, and damn, am I overexposed? I gotta freaking fix the settings of my white balance. Ah! All right, I gotta relax. So now let's get back to you, Razmo. Let's be real. I don't want to sit here and beat around the bush. I know why you're a furry, because you like to go to those events. You like to eat a bunch of fur burgers. And I'm not talking about, McDonald's. Are you into it for the chicks? Why do you do it? Or, I mean, let's be real. Isn't that what it's all about? Is like, it's kind of, freaky deaky a little bit?
Well, the freaky deaky side is definitely there, and it's definitely prominent throughout. Like there, you'll see a lot of furries if they get interviewed in a sense like this, whether it be through Crowder or Tim Pool and the other people who've engaged with the fandom. They always beat around that question. I'm not gonna like deny that happens, but I will say like that's not my main interest.
Mm-hmm.
I go there for my friends. A lot of the friends I've made in the fandom are online, and the reason why I go to the conventions is solely to just meet up with them in person because I am very much a in-person, you know, kind of guy when it comes to socializing. Like if it's playing Call of Duty, on the Xbox or going out, to the bar and just, shooting the shit, playing pool, playing poker, that kind of thing. I much rather do that. And, with how
Can
far
you
out
wear
my
your furry mask while you play poker? Because that would give you an advantage. There's no way they let you do that because you wouldn't
that'd
know
be
what cards you have.
quite the advantage, but I don't play too much poker at the conventions. Usually it's like Smash Bros on like the Nintendo Switch or ordering in some pizza. The last one I threw a big room party with a bunch of fellow conservative furries, and we drunk watched Team America and laughed our asses off, and then went to the gym afterwards at like midnight at the hotel.
In the furry fandom, how would you say that they lean on the Israel and Palestine issue? Are they more progressive and pro Hamas? Or are they more pro Israel, in your opinion?
I would say it's about that same mixed bag as the general public.
Hmm.
Um, people are pro and anti-Israel for a wide variety of reasons.
That's true.
You see the memes where it's the far left and someone on the right saying screw Israel, and they're like both look at each other like, wait, did we agree on something?
They call that the horseshoe theory. I'm sick of
Yep.
hearing that, but yeah, that's what that's called, the freaking horseshoe theory. Give me a break. But yeah, I guess that makes sense. There's probably a lot of overlap. So now let's really kind of get into the nitty gritty of why this is so topical. I mean, when you see the connection, and I don't know if you've seen the Turkey Tom video, and that's it's a great video on YouTube. It has millions of views. Everybody needs to go watch it. And it's somehow screenshots of one of the Discords that Tyler Robinson was messaging his boyfriend. And in this relationship, God, what's the boyfriend's name again? He had some goofy name, Lance. Lance would do some weird stuff where I don't know how much they were a furry, but they watched a lot of like anime pornography, I think it said in there. And then on top of it, he would do this weird thing, which I actually heard of like artists doing this when I was in college. I remember this girl that went to art school told me it's called nesting, where like these really, she was described to be like, rich or like, and well-known artists would like go into a hotel room and just kind of like stay in it for a week and just like trash it. Like, even the bed would
Oh,
be covered in trash. Like it was called like nesting or ratting. Like they just kind of wanted to be in the dirt. And it was weird. And when you describe these, when you read the text messages, they kind of describe like he was subconsciously doing that, where he supposedly built like a makeshift fort with trash in the living room of their apartment in Utah, and that he would sit there all day and like kind of like curl up into it and hit his vape pen repeatedly and look at TikTok and look at videos and constantly sharing memes. And so he was almost like they said that when people would try to go throw away like a cup, he'd be like, "No, leave that. That's supposed to be there. I put that there." And obviously they were crazy. That's just the ramblings of a crazy person, because it was looked like a pile of trash. So my point is, he was kind of like animalistic, like he wanted to be dirty. What do you think the connection is? I don't think, maybe I'm gonna sound very pro furry right now, but I don't necessarily think because if somebody's a furry, they're gonna be more violent. I would actually, if I just had to make an assumption, and I could be wrong, and people are gonna say, well, look at the last people. If you're a trans person, I would say you're more likely to do a shooting. But if you're a furry, I don't personally think there's enough evidence to say that there's an aggressive furry community. So I don't know if is a huge link when it comes to Tyler Robinson with the furry community and Thomas Crooks.
yeah. So I kind of agree with you there. Now, what I think causes, like, well, first off, like, I don't know how involved, Charlie's, partners, or Charlie Shooter's partner's relationship was with the fandom, like how tight it was. I didn't do too much research into it, but I think there's some valid links there. The other one that also popped up in the media was I think Thomas Crooks, Trump's,
Yeah.
would be assassin. That one I don't think is true. I read some of like the news articles, and basically the accusation they're making is that this guy had an account on a site called DeviantArt, which is just another art sharing platform where, of course, there's anytime there's a place you share art, furries are going to be there. And they're basically saying because there's a lot of furry accounts there, and he had an account on that platform too. He's where the furries are, but I don't think he like liked or engaged with much of it at all. But
And
going
yeah,
back
there's not like
to
pictures of him with a tail at a convention
no,
necessarily.
yeah,
And where do you think that comes from? Because I used to be a big Howard Stern fan. Now I don't like him so much. But he used to always talk about, the original furries was the My Little Pony, the bronies. That was the original thing. What for the people that don't know, how are bronies connected to furries?
I think it's only because they overlap because the brony thing was just more like it's a show specific fandom, and that show happens to be animal characters. So obviously, if you were to draw a Venn diagram, there's some overlap in
Yeah.
the sense like that's there. But I wouldn't say the fandom originated out of that one. I think it's just there was two separate fandoms and with a bit of overlap, so you could be both or one or the other.
But there's a lot of guys online that have cranked it to Sparkle Pony or whatever. That's pretty crazy, don't you think?
I would agree that's pretty crazy, and I would, find no interest in it.
And Howard Stern would show the pictures. It would be, I think Sparkle Pony that's one of the ponies, right? Sparkle Pony? Am I right? I think that's a famous one. I think, well,
I don't
whatever.
even know their names.
Well,
Not a
I think
show I
there's Sparkle
watch.
Pony, but I remember this because it kind of haunted me. They would draw. Oh, we got a super chat, $5. We need you in Chapel Hill, bro. Al's Burger Shack, brother, on me. Yes, when I'm in Chapel Hill, I do need to go up to North Carolina. Thank you for the super chat.
Yeah, check it more of those.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't get back into what I was going to say, because I was going to talk about on Howard Stern how they showed a picture of Sparkle Pony and it was blurred out, but with like a woman's vagina. It's crazy. It's crazy. Now the internet is even crazier than that. So I guess I want to get back into the furry and fandom. So now you are the conservative. You're kind of like you're ostracized a little bit, it sounds like. But my producer, or my ex-producer, JVT, he went to a furry convention with a frequent guest on the show, Rex, who is also a furry. And he loved it. He said it was nice, but the guy basically left. He was a damn furry. So is it really about the damn costumes, or is it really about the friends and just kind of hanging out with people that are just, open-minded and cool?
I would say the main purpose, like I said, for the conventions, I I gander if you were to ask anyone in the fandom, like nine times out of 10, you're going to get this answer, and it's that people go to connect with the friends they've made online. It's it's seen as like, well, I know 5 of the 20 friends I've made are going to be at this one convention. I want to go to it because I want to meet with them and actually hang out in person and you know do what people would normally do. Because more than half the time when I go to these things, I'm not even in the suit. I am spending almost 80-90% of the time, going to like the restaurant across the street or doing like a room party where we're just, playing board games or like actually meeting and talking and hanging out. Now a lot of people go to the conventions for other reasons and they have different kinds of
To get
experiences than I
laid, to
do.
get laid, they
Yeah.
gotta get laid.
Um and it's a mixed bag. I think with any fandom, when adults are involved in a fandom, you're going to have adult material, and I don't think it's something that's exclusive like to the furry fandom. But the one
Razmo,
thing
it sounds like you're not getting laid. You're the only furry not getting laid at these things. What do you have, a girlfriend, a boyfriend? What do you got going on? What's your personal life like? Do you date another furry? Can you elaborate, or do you keep that a secret?
I've only dated 2 girls in my life. One of
Mhm.
them might have been a Russian spy. I don't know.
Probably. Anytime a girl likes me, I'm like, she's a spy. She works for the government. There's
Yeah.
no way. There's no
No,
way.
she was apparently she was adopted, born in Russia, and she was a pathological liar, lied about her parents being dead and a bunch of like other crazy stuff.
Did
Of
she
course,
steal
I
your
met her.
identity? Did she steal your identity?
No, but I had to break that off once I found all that stuff out.
Did she
And
try to
so
do a 90-day fiance deal, green card scam?
I could never figure out what she wanted. We were dating for maybe 4 or 5 months, and I found that stuff out and broke it off. And I'm like, you're crazy. The second person I dated was someone more local to where I live now, and it was just more like I if I'm gonna date, it's gonna be with someone that I actually potentially see, making my wife one day. The reason why I don't, engage in the hookup culture is because, I'm saving, those experiences for the woman I hope to marry one day. I know the furries thing is gonna be is gonna be a bit of a roadblock to that,
It'll be a little bit of a red
Yeah.
flag, and you don't want to get out there. You're banging. You get what is it? A foot, hoof, and mouth disease or whatever. I don't want you to get anything like that, and that's very contagious when you're out there in the field, from what I've heard. So, okay, we got to find you a partner, though. I'm just surprised online that you know what I mean. Like, I feel like if you're in this community, there has to be a lot of people online, like other girls, and it seems like this Russian girl is online. That didn't sound good, but I don't know. I just
Well,
figured that because it's
the
so niche that you'd be able to meet more women.
well, the thing is, if the kind of woman that I want to marry is either equally conservative or even more conservative than me, I kind of want the wife that drags me to church on the days where I'm like, maybe I don't go today. Um, someone who would be a great person to be a partner with and raise hopefully kids one day with me. Um, but those kind of people in the fandom are like finding a diamond in the rough, though.
Yeah, I
They're
know
all
because
snatched up in 5 seconds.
yeah, they've all been humped by every My Little Pony, Sparkle Pony out there. You don't want that sloppy seconds, literally. So yeah, it is kind of hard. Now, tell me this: so you trying to find a woman of equal or more Christian values, if I heard you right, or how does your religion and your Christianity kind of come into play? Because I guess this isn't anti-God, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't think it was blasphemy to want to be like an animal. And I'm a plant-based pimp. I'm a vegetarian, and I actually believe God created the animals with his almost. I mean, people are going to get mad because we sacrifice animals or whatever, but I think animals are just as significantly as important as humans in the ecosystem of how the world works. I know that. I mean, I guess maybe we are the top of the food chain, but the animals, without the animals, we'd be screwed. So I just think they're very important. So I don't think it's bad. But I guess the old stories of the Bible before the flood, supposedly like angels and demons, or like the Nephilim were like mating with other animals, and they were able to crossbreed, and that's why we get the mythology of like centaurs that are half man and half horse. So then if that is true, and then God made a flood and then killed everybody except for Noah and his family, maybe he doesn't like the transhumanism experience of transitioning to an animal. I mean, where do you fall in the religious aspect of it all?
So, the way I engage with the fandom is that, I treat it as more like the character that I created, the one sitting there in the background with the MAGA hat on. I created it more or less to just kind of
Your
get
character has a MAGA hat? Is that what you're saying? Your guy, your Razmo has a
right there.
MAGA.
Yeah.
No, did he storm the Capitol? How do I show you? Hold on, let me see if I remove myself. Let me see.
Funny enough, I actually had a I had a plane tickets to go with my mom to J6, and we backed out last second just because we're like it's not gonna fit our schedule. I was
Damn,
almost
dude. What
there.
if you stormed the Capitol in Razmo? That would have been a huge story. You would have been the most famous guy at all the events. It would have been like, oh my God, that's Razmo. He almost overthrew the government for 6 hours. That would have been
Yeah,
really
I'm
cool.
jealous I wasn't in the position where a QAnon shaman was, up on the podium. It should have been me.
Dude, QAnon Furry. That would have broken the internet, and that would have created a whole different narrative.
Yeah, but the way I made my character and the way I engage with it is I treat it as more like it's my gamer tag or like an alias I use online. So in the same way, like if you were to make friends, I don't know, playing like Destiny and doing raids and doing campaigns or something like that. Um, when you meet people in the voice chats or in the lobbies, you meet them as their gamer tag, right? You make up an alias, so that way you keep a little bit of anonymity, but in this case, it's just a character that I created.
Well, you
And
don't
of
have much
course,
anonymity now, though. I mean, I'm sure they can search you. I mean, now
well,
this interview is going to be clips are going to be everywhere. I mean, now you're going
yeah,
to be alt-right. They're going to say you're a Nick Fuentes fan. They're going to say that you're denying, you're a revisionist or something. So I guess
nothing new that I haven't seen before or been called already. So,
Well, what do you think about everybody being called the Nazi? Because honestly, like I think it could go viral if you were the Nazi furry. I mean, they would be like, oh my gosh, now I'm not saying you should go full Nazi, but I mean, could you imagine if there was a Nazi cosplay furry? Maybe they were playing like Hitler's dog. Hitler had a dog. Actually, Hitler was one of the
there's
Germany.
been some either trolls or people in the fandom that have pushed that envelope at a couple cons.
I'm sure they had, and they probably went
Yep.
viral. I didn't see it, but I bet everybody's talking about it. I mean, that's like. Hey, did you see they just did some performance art where it was like Benjamin Netanyahu and they're at Union Station in DC eating baby parts? I don't know. Listen, we're not here to get too crazy about Israel Palestine, but it's just it is kind of a funny situation. Now, you personally, you're MAGA, but what do you think about Trump? Marjorie Taylor Greene just said she's resigning on January 1st. I don't know if you saw that. And are
I
you
did not
happy?
hear that she's
Yeah,
resigning.
it's huge news. Yeah, I can't. She just announced it. That's why I was kind of freaking out. That's why I was actually running late. I was watching her 20-minute resignation video. Yeah, she is resigning January 1st. That is not fake news. That's real. It's on all of her official social media accounts. And she just said that she's sick of fighting with Trump, basically. So, are you happy with Trump's job so far? Because I'll be honest, I think there's some big critiques. Like gas isn't any cheaper. I thought that was going to get real cheap. It's not really down that much, but. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we got all the J6ers pardoned, but that was a sham. So he just made that right. He didn't necessarily like make the world better. He just made a horrible situation correct. And then Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, it doesn't seem like they're slowing down. It looks like they're just kind of moving right along. So in the midterms, Mamdani won. I mean, I don't know. I could say there's some heavy critiques during his presidency this term.
Well, unlike the left, who can't seem to critique their own side, I 100% agree with, a lot of what you said. I'm a huge Marjorie Taylor Greene fan. She was,
Me too.
anytime I would bring up, or people would ask me like, well, is there any, politicians or people in Congress that you don't think are sellouts, part of the Rhino class in the Uniparty? Marjorie Taylor Greene would be the first person I would mention every single time.
Me too.
She was the one that's like, hey, get off your ass and actually come in and vote. What is this that we don't show up and actually do our job? And I can appreciate that a lot about her. And she was also some of the first to proclaim there's two genders on the congressional halls, and be in the forefront and taking a lot of the initial heat for being the people like that, until it became more or less taboo to say that now that Trump is back in office. But yeah, I'm upset with the divide between Marjorie and Trump. I wish there was some ways to remedy those things, maybe in a way that like Elon Musk and Trump kind of remedied it a little bit. Once the unfortunate events what happened to Charlie, they kind of had some sort of hey, we might need to put some differences aside on the way we want to do things just to keep a unified front. And I hope he does that with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
If I had to guess though, I don't think that's what's happening. I think she's going to try to make a play for president after JD Vance.
She's
Maybe,
got
I
my
don't know.
vote.
Yeah, she's kind of probably got mine too a little bit.
Maybe the tickets Vance and in Green or Green and Vance on the next one.
That'd be good if they teamed up. I mean, Vance is this is Vance's problem, and it's his skill, is that he's wishy-washy. He was a never Trumper, now he's Trump's vice president, so he'll go wherever it's most opportunistic. And hey, I can't blame him. That's what a politician's supposed to do. So I think that he is smart. Obviously, JD Vance is a smart guy. I would never say that he's dumb. But that's kind of the joke, right? Like they kind of want to, oh, he's a hillbilly, yet he's, Ivy League educated, pretty smart guy, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he is probably the leading candidate. And if they would actually team up, that'd be smart. But if that was really a possibility, wouldn't it be more strategic for Marjorie to stay at least in power? Because her leaving, it seems like that's kind of like a big FU. I don't want to deal with, I want to come and plan my next move and not be, lambasted for however long until 2028.
Yeah. I feel like, we all don't know. We can't act like we know what's going on behind closed doors and what like the true plan is. Because if you reveal your hand, you're gonna lose. But personally, I think she would have had better influence if she would have stayed in her seat. She made it really clear like she wasn't going to go for like Senate, trying to move up. She was really happy where she was because she was really effective at where she was as a congresswoman. I feel like sticking around would have helped, especially with she's been one of the few people pushing to get the Jeffrey Epstein files released, which I greatly appreciate. We need to know what happened around that guy, who else was involved and victimized these poor women and girls. And I'm saddened that she's removing herself from a position to release those things.
I know. And do you think Epstein has ever been to a furry convention? I bet he has, that freak. I bet he's been to a lot of them. I bet he's been at those groups. I don't
know if he's ever been to one, but I wouldn't be surprised if one went to his island.
Oh, for sure. But I bet Jeffrey Epstein put on one of those things in New York City at FurryCon NYC 2019 or whatever, or whenever he's out of jail, and probably had his head and he's probably something scary like a spider or something. But where do people, because there's one girl, her name was Rex, and I think she just kind of wore a fin because it is expensive. She wasn't super wealthy. She had a single mom. But I guess, how do you decide like what you want to be? Like, do you want to be something menacing? Because if I had to pick a furry character right now, I'd pick a cat because I'm a cat freak. But I'm sure a lot of people are cats, right? That's not that creative.
There's quite a few of those.
Yeah, but what does your animal say about a person's personality usually?
Some people like it for the look. Others like it for kind of like the folklore characteristic ties that are to certain animals. Like, like owls have like the sense of like wisdom to them,
and they go around and act wise. Oh, wow. Yeah. So okay, that makes sense.
I mean, like
character trait.
If it's something that kind of relates, to like certain species or whatever, sometimes that can be the dropping factor. Others are
like elephant. Does anybody elephant? Cool. Because then you're kind of fat. Probably nobody wants to dress like the elephant. Probably not popular.
Ironically, a lot of people who are overweight pick some overweight species characters in the fandom. I find it to be kind of
that's
funny,
true.
Hey,
but TV timeout. So you're telling me a 300-pounder will pick an animal that's more likely to be big in the wild, so they have more authenticity when they present as this animal?
Sometimes.
I love that. I love that because that is modern solutions for modern problems. Like really and truly, I love that.
But no, I picked mine. So mine is a hybrid. It's a coy wolf, and the reason why I picked it was just because my parents and a lot of my family are from the north, up in the Midwest, and I was born and raised in Texas. So I kind of picked like a combination of a coyote and like a northern werewolf and just combined it to kind of represent me that way. A person of two halves of the country kind of pushed into one. So.
And I like that it's white. I bet it's hard to keep clean, especially like if there's food around and people are drinking damn Mountain Dew and stuff, spilling it on you. Because that's what you said. You guys are eating pizza and drinking soda and eating all kinds of red dye 40 and whatever.
Well, that's when those are those moments where that thing comes off and I'm, socializing with my friends, with my face and having a good time.
Now, if you had to commit a crime, would you ever consider dressing in like maybe a furry that you don't like to try to frame? Like if I was going to frame a crime, I would frame a furry because then you could commit the crime in that furry outfit and be like,
That's
that's
not
what
a bad
one of
idea.
one. That's what I'm saying. It was, dude, that was
I
Razmo. If
could
I
just go
got
online and get a Temu fursuit, and say, hey,
no, to do it right, it would need to be like a dead match. It would need to be a match because they're going to be in court and be like, look, that button is blah blah blah, or what the tail's tip is furry and mine is I don't know. I don't know what the hell that costume is. What does your mom say? It looks like your mom's cool. She was going to storm the Capitol, so obviously your mom's badass. But what does she say about this? Does she think it's weird? Is she embarrassed, or is she like, oh, this is my son Razmo, or kind of be honest? What does the family say? Because I feel like if you can get over that hump, who really cares what strangers or even your friends, they're going to be your friend even
yeah,
if you wear a freaking costume at a party. Who cares? People wear
yeah,
costumes all day long.
yeah. The way I put it is always like, I'm just like everybody else, but I wear a costume maybe like 8, 10 extra days a year
Yeah,
because
you just
most of them
celebrate
is
a
in this.
holiday. Yeah, you celebrate Halloween basically, which is a little
Yeah,
occultic. We can get into that. So I don't know if Jesus is gonna be like, now we don't need to call it Halloween, but yeah, it's literally just a party. You're just going to a party because I'm telling you, I used to go to those raves, and that's the first time I ever saw this big mass, and I'm like, what is that? And that's before I'd ever really looked because the internet was alive, but I just didn't really know that much about furry. I'd never watched like a furry documentary. And I thought they were cool. I mean, I was really high at a concert in college, but I thought they were really cool. And they were doing like the peace, love, unity, respect, and they had like lights and stuff. So I don't know. I don't think it's as sinister as people think, but I can see how it is a little different. So what does your parents and family think?
oh well, I've never told my dad like upfront, but I think he knows. But I have told my mom.
Why not your
I
dad, real quick? Why not your dad? You think he's gonna be like, oh, you fucking gay wad? What is that? I mean, who cares? I mean, what is he
No,
gonna?
he would be if my parents knew I was online with you, they'd be freaking out right now. But who knows if this gets shared? Because my
Yeah.
parents, my mom, when I told her, I said, there's plenty of worse things I could be doing. I could be, addicted to drugs. I could be an alcoholic. I could be out committing crimes and being a, true degenerate of society, but, I prioritize the right things. I focus on my career, making something of myself. And this just happens to be a hobby where I can, you know, go on a weekend or two a year with some friends and just party and have fun and then get back to real life.
And you're
Um,
successful in this? Is that what I'm saying? Is that you have a big following, Razmo? Are you freaking famous? Because look at this.
um,
Somebody's calling you a legend. I didn't even know. Look at this. Razmo is a legend, dude. W guess also if Alex was a furry, he'd be a fox. I like that. A fox. But I do feel like I kind of want to be like a tiger. I kind of want to go white tiger and take a little bit page from your book. I like that white. It looks cool over there. Um,
mhm.
uh, so are you like famous in the furry community?
Like I said, I was in some of the influencer spheres. While I didn't really get my channel really off the ground on YouTube, where I searched or kind of peaked a little bit before like I took a step back to focus on finishing my degree and getting my career set up. Um, During college, I was making TikToks, and on my TikTok page, I had over 90,000 followers
Oh,
there.
so you were big because a lot of those other furries probably only had 1,000. I mean that is big if you're almost over 100,000. And I'm sure you had some viral videos if you built on TikTok. It is maybe basically bot farms and Chinamen watching it, but still, it still counts, and it's still a real site that does have a lot of cultural relevance. Now, tell me
Mhm.
this though. So you're kind of going viral. Can you monetize this? Because it seems like an expensive deal. Like the outfits seem expensive, and the hotel rooms. They're usually at nice hotels. They don't do these at Motel Sixes, right? The one my producer went to, it was like a nice hotel. I forget, like the Omni or something.
Yeah, what's actually funny is I saw your producer, reply to some of the people replying in the threads when you and I tweeted about it and posted the video of them all dancing to, him dressed as a frog to, you know, turn the freaking, frogs gay,
Frog's
drink the
gay.
water, right?
He was a gay, or I think he was
What's
a straight
so
frog.
funny is that group he was with, I'm pretty sure like 80% of them are based because I know one of the ones that was in that video and I just like hung out with him in like Florida earlier this year.
Look how small the world is. I'm sure Jimmy's probably watching this right now. That's so funny that all those guys in that video, they had to have known the joke. They're all laughing and doing the ribbons.
Yeah,
Like they wouldn't
like
have done that if they didn't know the joke that Alex Jones and gay frogs. Like obviously they were,
yeah,
maybe
they
not
all I
conservative,
can
but they got
guarantee
it.
you they all knew that joke,
Yeah,
that
they've all
video for
heard that
sure.
joke.
That's why they went along with it. They thought it was, you know, making jokes, of course you're gonna do stuff like that. Like I knew some friends of mine that held up a Nicki Minaj American flag at another one of the conventions just as a way to assert, like, yeah, America.
And did they get blowback for that? They're like, "Oh, Nicki Minaj is anti
Not that
already
one.
because she's a Trump supporter now."
The furry fandom is very much appreciative of meme culture.
That makes
It
sense, right? You have to have a
Yeah,
sense of humor. What's a breakdown guy girl in your opinion, roughly?
like the
The
actual
furries.
demographic
Yeah.
percentage. Um, I actually have a site. I can pull it up. There's a I don't know how up to date their information is now, but I
And
remember
are
when
there
I
a
went
bunch of grandpas that are getting into it late? I mean, I imagine there's obviously young people that are going to find out about it, but like, what about the old timers that they didn't have old furry
yeah.
costumes back in the day and now want to be a furry, or is that a very small part of the upcoming wave of furries?
So for age, vast majority, it kind of takes a really steep drop off. I would say around like 35. And then there's just kind of from what it's taken forever to load, but there's a very low bar beyond the age of 35. With the highest being kind of like right when you get out of high school, like 18, 19. Um, but basically it's from 18 to like 35 is going to be like your core demographic of like the age of
Damn, dude,
most furries.
I need to get some more furry content. That's like the best demographic to, try to market to, as they say. And now the furry community has a stranglehold on it. Okay, well, let's kind of tie things back into all this. Seems
Yeah.
like you're a very well-adjusted person, and somebody that might not know another furry might think, "Hey, this guy's going to be weird. This guy's going to be bizarre." But dude, you seem more well-adjusted than me, if we're being honest. So, why do people think that? Why do we have that impression that furries are crazy?
Well, because there is a decent sized sect of the fandom that constantly does things that, even I consider pure degenerate behavior, people that wear, the kink gear in public and, aren't afraid to do it in front of, kids and things like that, things that, need to be called out,
Wait, why
accounts
don't
like
time out? Another TV timeout. I have to keep doing this when you're making good points. Why don't you go find other furries? You dress as a furry and be a hero furry that virtue signals and helps all the other furries. Like when you see some of these sexual perverted furries, well, that would be great. If you confronted them, like, why are you doing this? Like, this is supposed to be a, clean thing, and you're being a pervert. I think that would get millions of views.
well, I mean, it's just, I think the average public isn't looking for someone like myself saying those things because if you look at my Twitter account, I've been saying it since 2020 when
Yeah.
I was like, screw. I said this culture is shifting in a way that's not going to be good for the country. We need to start like actually speaking our mind because um, kind of like referencing Charlie here. I mean, people probably know somewhere in his freedom shirt because I had great respect for Charlie. I saw him once in person back in 2020 when I was with Students for Trump group and we were door knocking in the Austin area. He came down and talked to us. But one thing I think one of his most popular quotes, and I think one of his most important is, the moment we stop talking, that's when violence starts. And what I think is, causing a lot of people in the fandom to either get radicalized or be very far left, and that being the predominant voice that, unfortunately speaks for the majority of the fandom is that, like I mentioned earlier, the peer pressure for people is very, very high to have those far leftist views in the fandom. What's going on is you're taking people who were like myself,
Well, is that because LGBTQ is kind of overlapping with it? Why are
yeah,
they forcing them to have that progressive viewpoint?
it's mainly because just kind of look at nerd culture in general. The people who are like the anime people, the people who like Star
Well, to
Trek.
be fair, nerdrotic. Everybody loves nerdrotic.
Yeah. Well, I think the nerd culture took a good rise, but if you look at like who influence who influences it the most, it's the left. We've seen like the fall of Hollywood and the trash remakes. There's
Yeah.
not many good stuff that comes out nowadays, and it's because those spaces are controlled by a lot of left leaning individuals like Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. Um, and when it comes to the nerd culture and things like that, it's the same thing. Where the left still dominates it, and they but now with the age of the internet and the re-rise of Trump, people are now starting to wake up, and also they lived through 4 years of Biden, which sucked. And it's kind of hard to deny that when your paycheck, isn't, high enough to pay for your damn groceries, which hyperinflated due to all the COVID, or the COVID shutdowns. But going back to it, it's that pressure, where you taking people who were like myself, who were, like, making it hard to make friends and looking for a place to connect and finding people with common interests. They go into these places, they meet people, and if it's already dominated by the left, they want to maintain that as like that's the political stance that we all have, right? And the moment you try to stray from it, that might be their only friend group. Like myself, it was hard to make friends in high school, so I was trying to look outside of my own school to find friends. So how you do that, you find common interests online, and that was one I ended up finding. But for people who didn't develop their social skills and then venture out to maintain that tie to reality by talking to everyone and meeting people all the time, if that's the only group of friends you ever talk to and that's your whole entire world, and they threaten you to basically be, hey, if you disagree with us or you start to stray from the pack, like we're going to, isolate you, make sure you're canceled, and make sure you have no friends and no life. And I've seen it where people who aren't necessarily left leaning in the fandom, they'll act like they're left leaning because that's their social circle. And the moment I yank them aside and they're still in the fandom space, but they're hanging around like my crowd, all of a sudden, like the radical level goes from here to like almost nothing. Like, yeah, they're still left leaning because that's all they've been around, but like they back off a lot of that stuff the moment they step outside that bubble. Because I feel like it's the peer pressure.
It is the peer pressure, and I think that's like not just in furry community, but like in college and high school, and like a lot of people actually make their political decisions based on trying to please other people, or at least give them the impression that they're like agree on this common thing, and they have like no vested interest or even opinion on it, and they'll just kind of go with the flow. Now, I keep on kind of asking about this, but the parties and stuff. What about like drugs and alcohol? Is that part of this or not? Is that not big into kind of furries, like drugs and stuff? And I don't imagine it is. Jimmy went. I don't think he saw any drugs, but like, are these furries like getting high? Are they doing fentanyl? I don't imagine. Like, what is the vibe when it comes to them?
I feel like I always make, decent decisions. Maybe the one decision I made wrong is being a furry, but the everything else, I've had friends go like, hey, let's go to this place, it's gonna be crazy. I'm like, well, is there gonna be drugs there? And if they say yes, I'm like, I'm out.
It's that so drugs are kind of a part of it.
Some parts are,
some
like,
parties. I'm just saying it's a party.
Yeah.
So it's not really. I'm just saying you're going to some parties. They're adult parties, is what you're saying. They're like for it's not a joke.
I've never been in one. I think the closest I got was like some people like started cuddling in a corner, and then that was enough for me to kind of just I'm out. If this continues to go that way, I don't want to be here. I'll go find some other people to hang out with.
Razmo, you're too pure. You're too pure.
I get bullied for that all the time. All the time.
I'm about to bully you. I'm like, take off your mask and just at least hang out a little bit. Don't be too big of a square. But I can see how that is awkward, especially like, what is it when it sounds like you haven't been there, but like, what do you think the sexual gratification from it? Like, because if you're wearing a mask and stuff, it seems like it would be less pleasurable than like normal sex. You know what I mean? So like, is it? Why is it? Because do you think people can escape? Like, because when you're naked, like you're kind of me. I'm kind of embarrassed sometimes. You kind of feel uncomfortable. But if I had like a suit on and just a little hole for my genitals, maybe I would look kind of cooler naked. I don't know. I mean, like, what do you think? Is it a confidence thing? Why are they banging with a damn mask on their head?
I think it's just a kink. I see the art when I walk into their they call it the dealer's den at conventions.
Yeah.
It's just
that's the adult section.
No, it's not necessarily the adult section, but it's where all the merch and all the art and like anything that's something you can buy with money, that's where it's at. And then most conventions, unless they're proclaimed an 18+ convention, they'll have the like the very obviously adult section, like actually cornered off where they check IDs and be responsible with that.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, the stuff that I walk by is more like it's hinting or very suggestive art while it doesn't show anything outright. It's like a smirk or like the pose and things like that are like obviously hinting at, something that's more adult themed. And they display that all over the place. But for I would say that's like 10 to 20% of what's displayed in like the more public area where they don't check, IDs. Although every convention, if you're a minor, they do require a notarized form for every convention I've ever gone to. So there's at least some, respect for like, hey, you got to get your parents' permission to do this if you're under the age of 18. But I'm not gonna tell a lie and say that the suggestive stuff isn't everywhere, and that's kind of what I see. So I can only imagine just being observing the world. It's a kink, and people want to do that kind of stuff. Now I imagine it would suck because when I'm out wearing this thing on the streets of Pittsburgh at a convention I went to there, um it gets to damn near like 100 degrees. I have to wear like a an
Cooling
ice
thing.
pack
Yeah.
cooling vest just to like survive, and I have a fan blowing constantly through like my face. Some people got creative and made like little ice cream pops and things like that where it looks like an ice cream pop for like the character in the pictures, but it's got a fan built inside. um but I can't imagine it being a pleasant experience, at least for me. I mean, but the amount of things that people do when they're adults and get kinky with it, that's just not my partake. So I can't explain that from experience, but theorizing what it's like, I guess.
I hope you're not lying. I feel like you're eating all those fur burgers, Razmo. I think you're the freaking cock of the walk, literally. I bet you're in there and you got the wolf. Man, that's why they call you the wolf, because you're hungry like the wolf for fur burgers. But listen, I'm going to take your word for it because you seem like such a respectful guy. And okay, we only got a few more minutes now. Let's kind of tie up back to the violence part.
Yeah.
You look at obviously the horrible, horrible assassination of Charlie. It's so terrible. I don't even like thinking about it. It makes me even get sad. But the fact that Lance was dating his boyfriend that would do like this nesting, and that they would look at some weird anime stuff. I don't know if that necessarily makes them like furry fandom community, or even like showing memes of furry stuff. It looks like they watched, there was, I think, a furry video game that they might have played as well.
Yeah.
So like obviously they're like fans of furries, but I just don't know if that motivates somebody to shoot somebody. I mean, maybe you could say that they're disconnected with reality a little bit, but I
I
don't
think that's
know.
what it plays into.
Is that what it
Like
is? So
to
why
me,
are they making this connection?
well, because coming up from the conservative angle, what I'm guessing what, people that are considered like myself, but not in the fandom are seeing when they look at this is that, you look at, the tie of left-wing politics and left-wing ideology to a lot of, more fringe or like weird or, you know, wacky things, whether it be, the drag community or, like those kink communities or like Hollywood, all the kind of stuff that pushes things in a really weird way that makes people uncomfortable. Um, you know, I think it's the left's tie to those things, so therefore there's this inherent belief that just because you're a furry, you're a leftist, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk to you today, was to kind of prove that's not the case. If I had to take a guess at the actual demographics politically of the fandom, I would say at least 30% are like actually identify as conservative, but at least 50% are the kind of people you can, break bread over, share politics, and they're not going to like, end your friendship over that.
It doesn't seem like you'd end a friendship, because most people really, even if you're considered conservative, like you can kind of get along with somebody. But at least I can. I'm sure you seem like a nice guy. Even if I don't agree with him politically, like I could still go have a nice meal with somebody. I mean, if politics are going to come up and we have to debate, like I'll debate. But you see kind of what's going on now. I feel like I fight with enough conservatives too. I don't even need to fight with leftists. So I
Yeah,
don't know. It's kind of like I match more the energy than what their political ideology is. Unless like if their whole personality
yeah,
and energy is politics, then I'll kind of match that. But if like they're just a cool person and they're left leaning, but they're not really about politics, they don't want to get into politics, I can hang out with them and it doesn't really affect my opinion of them if we're not really getting political and we're just hanging out.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. I live by the golden rule. You treat people with respect, and you hope they do that in kind. But also like again going to that tie. I feel like what causes someone to commit an act of violence or an atrocity like what happened to Charlie is when you compound a bunch of delusions and things not based in reality. So like if you know, in my opinion, there's two genders. I think that's a fact.
Mhm.
My religion says it. I feel like science says it. I think it's pretty clear. But
Well, you know how
I
we
still,
know it's two genders, real quick, and Brendan Wild's. I mean, I think this is kind of hacky, but it is true. It's like on a form when you need to pick your sex for like a plane ticket, they'll give you 30 options. But what's crazy is when you go to the gender reassignment clinic, there's only two options. It's
yep,
boy or girl. Like which one do you reassign to? So there is just boy and girl, and that is all the proof you need, in my opinion. Oh, sorry
yeah.
to cut you off.
But it's not necessarily just because you're trans, but it's when you compound a lot of delusion. Because
Well,
I
do you think
think
a bunch of furries are delusional? Like, what do you think the makeup of them are like? Actually, like, I am, Razmo the wolf. You know what I mean? Like, how many people? Because there's different levels of the thing, and some because I've seen
yeah,
it where Jimmy was interviewing people, and sometimes they stay in character. And obviously, I'm sure when they're at home or on the phone with AT&T, feeling their cell phone, they're not in character. I'm sure they turn it off and on. But like, how many method furries are there where they just got to stay in character? They can't break. Is that a common thing?
the letterbox people, the people who actually think that they're
Yeah, and but
um
they said that's a psyop. But then I've been going to all these schools, and a kid in California, unless he was lying to me, said that they did have a litter box, not in the classroom, but in the boys' bathroom, and in the girls' one
mhm.
too.
Whether that's true or not, because you know how easy it is for someone to just drag one in and then say that it
Yeah,
was there, put by the staff. Whether it's true or not, I'm not saying it is or isn't, but
yeah.
um, it's a small sect that actually think that. Um, and again, like there's different varying degrees from the people I've met that have said those kind of things. Again, they're not my close friends because my close friends are the ones that are based in reality, at least. You know, which can be differing
Have
opinions,
you
but
met a
like at
furry
least
where you're like, "Hey, dude, okay, I get it, brother, I get it," and they will not get break out? Like Jim Carrey when he did Man on the Moon, they said that he was an asshole to work with because he wouldn't stop pretending to be Andy Kaufman. Like even when they were, when the day would be done, they'd be wrapped. Are there furries like that where they're like,
I,
I don't know what they would be saying, but they're just
yeah.
staying in character no matter what?
Um, like I feel like because of the people I chose to be friends with, I stayed out of most of those spheres for the most part. But like again, I'm just like everybody else on the internet, and I see the videos that get posted. Right? There's the infamous one where it's like the dude that's like in one of those hoods, doing this at like a freaking Denny's or something like that. That lives a TikTok posted. Um, Now I will say that that person just because they're wearing that thing doesn't make them a furry because I know that's a it's one of those things that's a Venn diagram. Just because you're that
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
mean you're this.
yeah.
Because again, like the definition of a furry is simply just you're a fan of anthropomorphic content. So if you're someone who likes, I have like just examples of something like an average person would like that a furry would probably like too, and that's like, I know Tim likes this from Timcast, but like just magic.
Tim loves it. Tim. Oh, that's a magic
Like,
card. Are you
yeah,
kidding?
these are
He
magic
loves it.
cards.
Sounds like you're a Tim fan. Tim's my guy. He's causing me all these problems with Turning Point, though. Um, uh,
I'm
he's
sad to
throwing.
see that he's not going to be at Amfest. I
I
wish he could be
know.
there.
I know. I know. I know. I don't even. I need to get into it. I need to address it, but I'm not going to do it right this second. But I will just say that. Um, on the Tim thing, not going to Amfest. I'm going to Amfest. I love Turning Point. I can see why Tim would be mad because he is usually like on the prime spot. But I also do think that like, between you and me, maybe Turning Point like wasn't as nice as they could have been, but this is like their biggest event they've ever had, like in the prime
Yep.
spot. I think we could have made it work. But long story short, it
Mhm.
didn't work out. It didn't, and
Yep.
Tim felt some sort of way. And sadly, I'm a Turning Point guy. I'm gonna be there. I love Charlie,
Yep.
and Tim is Tim. But I would have liked to him. I wish he wouldn't have gone after Turning Point, but he has every right. And that's my problem is when I was telling Tim not to do something. This I will say: the more you tell Tim Pool to not do something, the more he's going to do it. Just
Yeah.
remember that for anybody that's on here. Whenever you're talking to Tim Pool, that's just whenever you meet him, the more you tell him to do something, he's going to do the opposite. That's why I'm like, I should have been opposite. I should have been like, Tim, do it this way. Then he would have done it the opposite.
Yep.
But whatever. That's like Tim D. Trust. Okay. Yeah, Tim loves magic. You talked about like anamorphic. I can't even say it. Anthropomorphic. How do I say it? We used to have
anthropomorphic.
Anthropomorphic. Yes, anthropomorphic. Yep. I can't even say it. Anthropomorphic. What was that? Anthropomorphic. I'm trying to think of what was that show? Wasn't there a cartoon called Anthropodomes or something? I can't even fucking say it. What is the word? Clip that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or is that, what is it where it's like a horse? It's a woman turning into a horse. What is that?
I think you're referring to Animorphs.
Animorphs! Yeah. That's what I've been trying to say. Animorphs! That's why I say I can't say anthropomorphic. But what is it? God, I can't even say
anthropomorphic. And all it means is just that you're giving human characteristics to something that otherwise didn't have it. So, making, art where it's like, like this, like my.
Is it anthropomorphic if I gave my dog actual human breast implants, and if I gave Ginger human aspects? Is that anthropomorphic?
Technically.
Oh my gosh, Ginger! No, I don't think a doctor would do that. Maybe one in Honduras or Venezuela. Ginger, you're getting so big and thick. This is a real furry right here, a stinky furry. What about that? You ever met any furries that don't wash their damn suit and they got they had enchiladas for lunch and they're just sitting in that thing farting all day? You ever met anybody like that?
It's actually funny. There's people that will wear badges or like make a joke of the fact where like, there's choke points when you're at a big convention, right? I'm sure, like, just for me, get like
all kind of events.
Like,
just
there's always that weird stairwell where everyone gets crammed in just to go to the next level at the convention center. And for the people who don't engage in hygiene, when you're caught in one of those scenarios, it's bad. And there's people like calling them out. At least there's that, like, everywhere around the convention, people be like, "Yo, hygiene, like, wash your ass, dude. Like, you smell awful."
Yeah, I know. Okay, it's definitely wash your ass, because people there, they're gonna, like you said, they're gonna smell it, they're gonna notice, and even if they are really forgiving and accepting there, nobody wants you to smell like poop. Like, nobody likes that smell. That's just basic hygiene. Okay, well, Razmo, I think we've learned a lot. Is there anything tonight that specifically I didn't get to that you wanted to kind of say? I really appreciate you making time. I know we had to reschedule, and I know I'm having headaches with my computers. I still got to fix some stuff. Even my white balance isn't all set, but I've just been so busy. And then this week, real quick, before we end the show, I'm going to be at Hyenas Comedy Club this Sunday, the 23rd. I hope if you're in Dallas, Texas, please, I want to be there with the Danger Cats. I really want to see everybody in Dallas. Come on out this Sunday. I believe the show starts at 7 p.m. So please, if you're in the DFW area, hit me up. If you can't afford tickets, I'll figure a way to get you in. But if you want to support us, come on out to Hyenas in Dallas. Okay, and what do you got going on? And like I said, let me go back to the question. What did we miss, if we missed anything?
I guess like my main point would be, kind of the main reason why I wanted to engage with you today is, one, I love all the content you make, going up on Capitol Hill, trolling the politicians and go city council.
Are you an AOC fan? Real quick, are you an AOC fan? Are you going to vote for her when she runs for president? Because you have to vote for her. She's a big booty Latina. So are you going to vote for her when she
runs? She may be a big booty Latina, but she's not going to get my vote.
Dang it, Razmo! I'm trying to campaign for her right now, because then I'll be the only person that's ever sexually harassed a president. Oh, maybe Trump's been harassed. All right, okay. So sorry. I keep cutting you off. Let's make your final point. Jerry Springer, I think they would have final thoughts or something. But what is Razmo's final thoughts on the furry fandom and all of the recent controversy?
Yeah. So, for one, just to make the point clear, I don't think being a furry is going to cause you to become a violent extremist, and I feel like there's plenty of more important traits or things that the people who are committing those acts of violence are tied to that are actually the true sources of it. I think it's simply like, oh, we found out this guy watches The Office. Watching The Office makes you a freaking terrorist. I think it's that level of connection. But like I said, the one point that the conservatives are making is that, in these left-wing spaces that encourage isolation or, that peer pressure to stay in the bubble, That's what causes people to get radical. And then when you compound the delusion, that's what leads to radicalism and violence. It's when the communication stops.
The
Um,
antisocial behavior.
Yep. And what my message to like fellow conservatives outside the fandom is that like, you know, we're trying to win the culture war, and it's hard to do that when you push out a lot of, culture that isn't inherently bad. Like I said, like I treat this thing as like it's a gamer tag. It's like my online social appearance, it's not something unique to the fandom to use a different alias. Um but it's something I do like 3 times a year, and it's just to go hang out with friends and have a good time. Now there's, of course, the people that take it way far beyond that, if you see degenerate behavior, call it out. Don't let it become a norm. Like, if people are wearing that, they're in the classrooms, or if they're, trying to get their work to say that's okay to wear that in the workplace, yeah, throw the hand up and say, "Yeah, no. We're here to focus and, do something else." Um but just because you hear that your friend may be in this fandom, I can't tell you how to think. Your guard might be raised, but still give people like myself a chance to find out more about us. Like what makes us individuals. I'm an avid individualist. I think every person's unique, and the only way to find out like who someone is to by engaging with them and talking to them, and at least giving them a chance. Um,
Well said. Well, real quick, I just want to say I am conservative, but at the same time, I'm a populist, and I feel like, everybody's now trying to kick people out of a tent. If you're not a total freak, and you are a total freak, but I'll allow a total freak in as long as you're not an evil person and you're not really trying to hurt people, which I don't think you are. I think you're trying to make people laugh and have fun and try to meet people. Like, I don't think you're trying to do something like you're a serious person trying to defecate in a litter box. And from what I've learned, it seems like there's a small minority that are doing that. It looks like this is just kind of fun. And everybody, as you know, as much as they want to deny it, everybody loves Halloween. Everybody loves putting on a costume because it's fun to
yeah,
act like that thing. Like, I get it. There's some people that don't put on costumes, but it's always, I've like never put on a costume and not had fun, if that makes sense. For whatever
yeah. I
reason,
know
when
you're
you're in a
having fun with
costume, you
it.
have
It's
fun.
fun to perform it out and get a reaction out of people. Like when you go to the city council meetings and you put on all your, it's
Exactly.
hilarious.
I'm Ronnie the Rat. No, and that's it. The people love that Ronnie the Rat. They always talk about it, but that wasn't even a proper furry outfit. But listen, I do really respect you coming on here and speaking so candidly, because I can tell that it's probably like you said, you're accepted in your community, but still from the outside looking in, people have misconceptions. And I just think you're being honest that it's not a perfect community. Like, there are perfect communities like that exist.
Yeah,
And like I said, I really appreciate the transparency, and I agree with you that I don't think there is. And I know Jack Posobiec, who's a friend of mine who I like and respect, he was like kind of
I
tweeting
love
that
them.
there is. Yeah, I love Jack, but I'm saying he was kind of tweeting like there's some violent connection with furries, and I think Jack's smarter than me. I'm like, I don't know. Like, every furry that I've met have seemed very passive, maybe passive aggressive, maybe they're mean, but they don't seem physically aggressive, because really at the end of the day, you're like, it's more like theater kid than like military guy. So and not to go back to Charlie and Tyler, like I feel like Lance was more of the furry, and Tyler the shooter seemed kind of more like the masculine one. So I don't know if Tyler really had that much
Yeah,
furry connection other than dating one. And I know that people are going to say, well, that's obviously a huge connection, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he was really in the community that deep, but maybe he was. We have still a lot to learn surrounding the case. But all I'm
yeah,
trying to say is that I think if somebody puts on a costume and LARPs around at a convention, yeah, it might be eccentric and weird, but I don't think that makes them a threat to us or a shooter. So that's
like
where
I
I'm at.
said, there's a bunch of illegals we got to deport, versus the guy who wears a costume 5 days out of the year. Let's go after the gang members. Let's go after, Antifa terrorists. Let's keep the focus on that. We got to be a unified front. And I agree. I don't like to see the right fracturing the way it is right now. We need to stay unified on this front and put the pressure on Trump to, deliver. Because, like you said, like he's not he had quite the foot on the gas for those first 100 days, but since then it's like, dude, you got to put your foot back on and you got to go all the way to the floor, dude. You
And
got to commit.
I,
Can't
well,
let these people get power again.
he does. He really needs to, but I don't know if he will. But I actually I'm really happy that he gave Mom Donnie that softball interview at the White House, because all of those people that are so
Oh, they're all
anti-MAGA
saying that Mom
shit.
Donnie is a sellout. It's great.
Well,
I
like, I
love
like
it.
their friends. Well, people are getting mad at Trump, for not being mean to him. But it's all bullshit at the end of the day. It's all a uniparty. And I like Trump, but you know what I mean? Like, they're going to be nice to each other in a meeting, even though, like, as soon as it's done, they're going to be talking shit about each other behind closed doors. But that's just politics. It's all fake and lame. Okay.
I would think it's funny if he's like, hey, I got some crime on you. Have you heard of this great place called El Salvador? I think you'd fit in quite well, quite frankly.
They were trying to do
you
that.
can play ball and live in a beautiful penthouse in New York City. I think it'll be great.
Yeah, just play ball, kick out the illegals. Well, okay, last question. Actually, you brought it up while you were saying your goodbyes.
Yeah.
What is the ethnic breakdown of furries? And last and final question, like, what would you say if the population is mainly white? I'm guessing furries are mainly white, but is there like a black furries community? Is there like a Latino? And if there is a big booty Latina community, can you send me their link?
There was one Latina furry that tried to get cozy with me one con, and but
and you didn't get fuzz for whatever cozy with her. Oh my gosh!
Sorry, like I said, I'm saving those experiences for the one I want to.
I can respect that. I can respect that. You're pure blood. That's good.
But yeah, no, every race is in there. It's predominantly white. It's a well-known fact amongst furries and outside.
Oh, is it big in other countries then?
Yeah, it's pretty big across the world. There's there's conventions in pretty much almost every democratic country. There's ones in Japan, Germany, UK, like Singapore, like they're everywhere.
Oh, and I said final question. Where does furries, and I know VTubers are different, but like that kind of almost seems like a furry thing where people are just their VTube character. Is that kind of a crossover, or is that totally different? Because obviously VTubers online and furries in person, but kind of that character mindset.
Oh, well, as you know from previous like interviews and stuff, like those suits cost a hefty penny. So it's a more budget friendly way to like commission someone to make like a quick model because it's digital, it's not physical material. And it's just the more budget friendly way to express yourself with your character by VTubing or doing that kind of stuff. I actually do I hang out in VR with some of my friends.
So you're a VTuber, of course. You see, so there is a lot of overlap, is what you're saying, basically.
I tried it. If you were to dig through my YouTube, you find some just silly streams where I'm testing it out. But this is like my headset right here, this little thing, and I put it on, and I do have my avatar in the game where it looks just like the suit. And I do that not to like do anything like, the right would say like crazy stuff. But I go there because like I mentioned earlier, like I like hanging out with my friends in person, and flying across the country to these cons is expensive. I can't do it, every day. But when I come home from work, if my friends are online, rather than playing a game where I can only hear their voice through like a Discord chat, I like being like in a world where like I can like see my friends, where it's, body language and, seeing their facial expressions. Cause, make certain, gestures with your hands, it changes the facial expression if you don't have those fancy tracking or whatever. But I do it just to hang out with my friends, and it feels more in person when you're doing it like in VR. So
be honest. I keep on saying last question. If the metaverse, if AI becomes unrecognizable with real life, would you plug into the metaverse if you could?
I prefer reality. That's where my faith kind of overrides, because to me I feel like living close to God is the most important thing. My faith is always first. So whatever is grounded in reality and keeps me tied to that is always the priority. But if I know it's safe and I can go in and have some fun for a little bit and just hang out with friends and play a bunch of games, I like hanging out with my friends. So
well, I think that's how they're going to trick people, is they'll say that it's indistinguishable and that you only live for 70 years outside of the metaverse, but when you're in the metaverse, you can live for literally 1,000 years. They even said that
if it's an actual Matrix where they plug something into my head,
it's
no.
that. You would not do that. That's what they would do. Because that's going to happen.
Oh, I know.
That is going to happen.
Is,
I think they're going to. I think what happens though is like Well, Musk is trying it so hard, but now he's like, now we talk about VTubers. He's doing all that weird anime stuff, and those aren't horses or wolves. Those are just straight up prostitutes, digital prostitutes. But no, that is the psyop. Is that yes, we want to create all of this, brain chip, artificial limb control, but really, it's like they want to be able to plug into your brain where you can just go into the metaverse. And I think that people were going to do it like crazy. I think people would, if they said,
Now that you mention it, I think I remember a point Tim made in one of his podcasts where he said, "Well, what if we just let all the liberals plug into the matrix, and then everyone who wants to live in reality just gets to enjoy life without all the."
I think he said that on
the
mine.
whining
I
and
think I said
complaining.
that. I think I said that on one of my episodes. We could let them all plug in. That's kind of what would happen. But you know what it'd be? It wouldn't be liberals or conservatives. It'd be a class thing. They'd say, "Oh well, you're poor here. You have to eat rice for every meal." But in the metaverse, you eat rice for every meal, but it tastes like steak. You still eat it. You still chew it, but it tastes
Yeah,
exactly like whatever you want it to taste.
you're gonna live in the pod and eat the bugs.
Basically, you will be eating bugs, but it's going to taste like filet mignon. So it's
Yep.
crazy. Well, Razmo, shout out all your socials. Where can people find you? How can they come and support you?
The main place where I'm at is on X. It's at Solosenberb. That was my first character's name. It was a big phoenix bird. But I just use this character, go by this character mostly now. That's why if you go on my Twitter, you'll see both those names with the American flag in the middle. But yeah, it's at Solosenberb. That's where I'm mostly at right now. I might revamp TikTok or YouTube in the future, but kind of helping some friends out with some other, fun content projects here and there.
What?
Because I'm
Well,
a busy guy. I'm a salary manager, and
if you're on
work in.
salary, I know you probably have a lot of people underneath you, and that's the problem. It's like they get you to kind of just, when you do get to that manager level, it's hard. You know what I mean? You're making good money. It's a lot of work. I totally understand that you got to grind. But last thing I will say for everybody watching, Rasmus got a good job. Looks like he's got a good family. He's close with his mom. If you're a single Christian woman, hit this guy up on Twitter. Go on a date. And I don't want to dox yourself, but what area of the country are you in?
North Dakota.
North Dakota guy. Oh my gosh, that's why you can't find a girlfriend. Damn, I didn't know you're in Fargo. I was just in Fargo. Fargo is a nice place. So actually, North Dakota is nice. I'm not even hating on it, but they said there's a lot of like Ethiopian or Somali immigrants that are trying to go there and do something. When I was in Fargo, they said, do not go to this one Walmart. Why do they do that? Why do they go to Fargo, like the whitest place on earth, when they're going to stick out the most? Because I guess they can get in the easiest because it's less populated. Why do they go to like Minneapolis, Minnesota?
I never asked. So I mean, they're here, but I mean, it's still like predominantly, white and stuff like that. But I don't know exactly where everyone lives, within the cities of the state. But if I imagine, I know that the Fargo area, there's the city of Moorhead that's like right across the river. So maybe it's like, hey, I want to live near all the conservative benefits, but still live in the, Walt's country. So that might be a factor. So it's spreading out throughout the state. But I mean, those communities are everywhere. You see in the news every day where people are coming in and
they can do these immigration scams. They know how to come here and use social services better than a person that's born in this country. It doesn't make sense. But we need to help out our American citizens. We need to help them get social services. Yes. I don't mind having a social safety net as long as it goes to Americans. And because I think that's the one thing where that actually does help the economy, because this is what happens with these Hispanics. They get all the snaps and they go sell a food cart and they turn those hot dogs that they bought into money. Then they send all that money back to Mexico. I'd rather give it to an American, even an African-American family. At least they're going to go buy something at the store here, and it's going to go back into our economy and not go to a foreign country. So in the end, it helps us, and it's a rising tide that lifts all ships mentality. So we love it, Razmo. Go ahead.
Benefits for Americans only, and there needs to be an incentive structure to actually get off of them to get back to working.
For sure. We don't want too many people on it, but I saw Crowder. It sounds like you like Crowder, and I like Crowder, but like he said, end all SNAP benefits. I'm like, you know what? We don't have to end all, because really there's so much food waste. We should figure out a way where we could give food away for free before it goes bad. Americans, you realize how much food we throw away in America. I don't know how you fix that, because these companies, they do give it to food kitchens and this and that, but by the time they give it to the food kitchen, a lot of the times it's rotten. It's weird that we can mass produce it, and we could probably mass produce it cheap enough to feed. As a matter of fact, this isn't a conspiracy. we have the ability to not have any food sustenance issues, but we still do because it's a misallocation of our food. You know, we have more food in America and not enough there, but we have the resources to have no hunger in modern day hunger, and we still have it. So that's where I'm like, if we could solve one thing, there's so many things we want solved. If we could solve the hunger crisis in America and across the world would be a better place if people were less hungry. I do truly believe that. Forget about your political ideology. Everybody, it doesn't matter if you're a conservative or liberal. Like if you're hungry, and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich could, really help a lot of people. So, all right, you're the man with the plan. Everybody go follow Razmo. All right, guys, we love you. We're going to be going live tomorrow night. We got interviews all lined up. Give my boy Razmo a shout. Everybody go follow him. And if you're a hot Christian, conservative lady, and you're okay with him, probably being the cock of the walk of the furry thing, and he's probably banged 10,000. He's lying. He's probably banged every furry, this side of the Mississippi. But we'll take his word for it because he is a good Christian young man. So if you want to reach out to him, you're single, ready to mingle, hit him, my boy Razmo. All right, peace. Love you guys. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Peace and good night. Bye. Ending the stream. Is that how I end it? Oh crap! My mouse is acting weird. I think that's. Oh crap! End stream. There. Why won't it end? Oh my gosh.